Hello and welcome to the Three Will Podcast. This is Danny Ryan, your host, and today I have Eric Bowden here with me. Eric is a principal consultant for Three Will. Thank you for joining me, Eric.
Well, great. Thank you for having me today, Danny. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am excited about learning more about what you've been up to for the last couple of months because I have tried my best. Oh, Eric, I have tried so hard to leave you alone. But unless it's things like this wonderful podcast and stuff like that, I try to minimize it. I do.
Right. Yeah, it works out, Danny. This is great. You give me a chance to celebrate some of the things we've been working on lately.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the last time we had a conversation like this was for the App Exchange podcast, and we talked about a couple of products. One was Trove, which was one where you could embed files into Salesforce. So for your accounts and opportunities, you could have Office 365 files in there. The other one was Channel, which Channel allowed for you to embed. And I'm probably using the terms embed very loosely here. I should probably tighten that up, but I'll let you make sense of that in a little bit here.
Sure.
But you could basically take Chatter and put that inside of Office 365 and embed it in there. Okay. So what I wanted to find out was what you've been up to, what's going on. I know you've been doing this for one big client of ours. Just give me an update on where things are right now.
Sure. Yeah. So we're working on, what will be the next version of Channel. It's a customization for a large enterprise client here in Atlanta. We're real excited to be leading up this project and using what is Channel to really provide great value for them. As you described already, Channel was initially intended to bring Chatter to users to SharePoint sites in Office 365, and for our first version of Channel, it was a custom built integration for SharePoint. This next version of Channel takes that a step further, and its purpose is to bring Chatter onto any web-based platform.
Okay, so before it was just focusing on Office 365, now we're talking anything.
That's right. Yeah, and we think of it as an embed client. Uh-huh. So, a lot like, users are accustomed to embedding YouTube videos uh-huh. or other, similar embed type components into a web application. Now you can bring Chatter into any web application using that same sort of embed strategy.
So is that any place you can put HTML basically is where you can put this thing?
Yeah, you got it. It's a few blocks of HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, and you have really what is a very functional Chatter interface, planted onto your web application.
So there's no special tags or anything special that you're doing in order to, it's just JavaScript and HTML.
Yeah, just JavaScript and HTML. With the client that we're working with now, for this first release, they're targeting a specific web application. It's Adobe Experience Manager is the application.
Okay.
So this is our first target. And from there, we're expecting that it'll be used on numerous web platforms, numerous web applications, and keeping that in mind, this is really developed as an API. So our customer is, foremost, it's the users who will use Chatter, but a key customer are the developers. So to your point about, is this special markup or any mm-hmm. special coding and so forth that you need to use, to embed the next version of Channel, the answer is really no. We've tried to make it, absolutely as simple as possible so that, so that web developers aren't presented with too much additional challenge.
Well, if I was doing this, I would use an ActiveX control.
Old school.
Yes.
I like that.
Work on Internet Explorer, forget everybody else.
Right.
What else is there?
Yeah, we can pull out Visual Studio for you.
Okay.
And code some C# and so forth.
JavaScript and HTML, your skills must be getting weak nowadays.
Oh,
huh?
No. This is, it's interesting to think about the evolution of Channel. because we saw this coming really from the first version, even though it was targeted for SharePoint and Office 365. We were using JavaScript technologies that were sort of agnostic to, or not coupled to, SharePoint and Office 365. And what we used was Angular.
Okay.
So Angular, for those not familiar, it's a model view controller framework for writing applications like this in JavaScript. And since it's written in JavaScript, it's not coupled to any server-side technology. We're not even coupled really to any development technology, not to something like Visual Studio or even specific build platforms.
So is there any C# code anywhere?
There is no C#, all JavaScript.
Goodness. And this JavaScript where is that hosted, the JavaScript itself? Is it just on some server in Azure or?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it can be hosted anywhere. It could be hosted in Azure. It could be hosted on within servers on site.
Okay.
For this particular customer, it's actually hosted in Amazon.
Okay.
So it's in Amazon S3 buckets, if you're familiar with that.
I'm very familiar with buying books off of Amazon.
Exactly. Yes. And we'll try and put a link in there for you so you can get to your books.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So talk me through this. You drop a couple pieces of HTML, some JavaScript onto it, and then what do you is there a configuration? I guess it's security wise. What are you doing to configure it?
Yep. So the the next version of Channel, which is available, which will be available to the public, would be the authentication would be directly to Salesforce.
Okay.
So to configure that authentication, you're going into Salesforce and you're configuring what's called a connected app, which I sort of think of as an OAuth endpoint for SharePoint developers. You can think of AppReg new, where you're making a new application. That's how you do it in SharePoint. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is you're configuring the OAuth connectivity from Channel to SharePoint. For this particular customer, we have coded a single sign-on experience. Mm. So they're using a third-party proxy.
Okay.
That serves as a intermediate between Channel and Salesforce, and that intermediate proxy is responsible for the single sign-on. So it's a custom in this case, and it's the authentication for Channel is pluggable. Okay. So we developed it, for that purpose, so that the same code base of Channel, it can authenticate directly to Salesforce, or we can write custom authentication providers like we did for this client.
Gotcha. And I heard the security is stored in the registry.
In a text file, readme.txt.
In a readme text file,
right,
nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's in the cloud, so it's highly secured, right?
This is true.
Is it encrypted?
It's but only so much until the FBI.
Okay, double hash, backdoor,
right.
slash.
Right.
Interesting. So that's probably for larger clients. A lot of the heavy lifting is around integrating it with whatever security they happen to use. Is that probably where some of the time is that's been taking to get this put into place? Is that?
I think that has been some of it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that was the bulk of the effort. They were looking for, quite a few additional features.
Okay.
For Channel.
For instance, what were some of those features?
Well, one of the features is the ability to easily share a page with your feed in Chatter. So, when people think about bringing Chatter into another application, they're normally thinking about bringing in the Chatter feed. Mm-hmm. And that's what Channel did previously. But there are other integrations to think about, such as one client I remember years ago, they wanted their integration to be a simple like button. So they didn't want to display the Chatter feed. They just wanted a like button on all the pages in the web application. And if users click that like button, then it would share that page to that user's feed, essentially saying, I like this page, and so it's going to show up on my feed. For this client, the project that we're working on now, It is a somewhat similar to the light concept, except it produces a pop-up window.
Okay.
What looks like a modal pop-up over the web page, and the users can type in a message, and they can choose, to which group. They can either share it to their own feed, or they can choose a group that they would like to share that page to. And so what it ends up doing is posting a link to the page, either into their feed, to their personal feed, or onto the group.
Okay. And I'll just throw this out there that if you need help with your JavaScript, Tommy and I know about window, what is it? Window.open or window.parent.
Yes,
we know about that. So if you need any help with that at all,
that's right.
Come by. Tommy and I are here for you.
Tommy helped me with that once. I remember that. Window.parent, of course.
Whatever we need to do to help, okay?
Yeah. You're quite the expert with CSS.
I don't know if I would say that.
With
I don't
the
know.
Three-wheel. I've seen what you've done with the Three-wheel.
Have you ever looked at? Yeah, have you ever done view source on our WordPress site? Oh my goodness! Well, it's probably because of the 82 plugins I have running on it. Each one has its own CSS, so I just give up. I throw my hands up in the air.
You're the king of that. Yes.
I don't know. I can see when certain things conflict. That's about it. But enough about me. What about you? What are some of the other features that you've included in this release?
So maybe a couple of big ones are around file attachments. So the most recent version of Channel doesn't include file attachments, and with this one you can either upload a file from your local PC or attach a file that's already in Salesforce to both feed posts and comments.
Nice.
So that's a substantial feature we were working on just this past sprint.
Packaging this thing up, it's just JavaScript and HTML. So I imagine there's not an installer or anything like that.
No, there's not an installer. When it's in the wild, it would be hosted on a shared server where everyone is accessing it. There's no server side code. It's all just gets. It's just serving up HTML and images. In terms of a build process, we're using Visual Studio Team Services online in the cloud for the build, and pretty simple process again because there's no server-side code, so it's not compiling. It's doing some minification and so forth of the JavaScript and CSS, but that's about it.
I have a feeling if I told you 10 years ago that during this time in 2016 you would be writing HTML with JavaScript, and I think if I told you that 10 years ago that you would be doing that, you'd probably punch me in the face.
Well, I wouldn't have believed you.
You wouldn't have believed you.
See,
punch me in the face. That would have been better.
I readily admit that I'm in the camp of those who fully expected HTML and JavaScript to have been gone long ago.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was a fledgling technology, much more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, but, it ends up being a good distributed, good method for building distributed applications. Mm-hmm. And so they just keep improving it. And I got to tell you, frameworks like Angular, Aurelia is another one that I've tinkered with a little bit. It just extends the life of JavaScript greatly. It's a pretty awesome way to develop apps.
Awesome. Anything else before we wrap up as far as just updates or no?
I don't think anything else comes to mind.
What's coming up? Are there? Because I know this is done in phases. Is there? What do you have to look forward to?
Well, I mean, we're getting very close to the end of the project was divided into 2 phases, 2 releases.
Okay.
And we're getting very close to the end of the second release. So, we're really getting close to wrapping things up.
You're coming free?
Yeah. I see more podcasts in my future.
No, there's other projects. I've been given the Heisman several times within the last couple of weeks about resources. So I'm ready for Bruce to say yes to something.
It could
He will
happen.
say yes.
It
That's
could happen.
great. We've got plenty in mind for you, my friend.
All right.
You will not be bored at all.
I wouldn't think so.
I know we're going to meet up with another large client to show this off to them later on this month. So you join me for that.
That's right.
If you're listening to this podcast and this interests you, I see on our website, a lot of people hit the Chatter for SharePoint page on our site. So people are very interested in it. Hopefully folks will also run into this podcast and listen to this podcast and maybe have some follow-up questions. Leave some comments on the page that this is posted up to on the 3Will site, and Eric and I will look at them and get to them. I answer any comments that people happen to leave on our website. I will also get a transcription of this as well done, so we'll put that up as well. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. You have been busy, but it's nice to hear you're about to wrap up with this.
Yep.
It'll be fun to see maybe also getting this packaged up into the App Exchange app. So for folks who want to learn more about that app, you can search for Channel on the App Exchange. It's also posted up to the Office App Store. And actually that's where really the code resides, right? It's more on the Office App Store side.
Right. Yep.
So really the only thing that's for the App Exchange is just a pointer back to what you have on the Office App Store. And that's the only really place that the code resides. So go check it out there. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate your time.
You bet. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for folks, we've got the podcast now up in a couple of different places. It's up on SoundCloud. It is on iTunes and also on Stitcher for your convenience. We'll also have the blog post up on our website as well, the worldfamous3will.com. So come drop by there, leave a comment, and we look forward to hearing back from you. Feel free to follow up with me, Danny, if you want to have a further conversation about what we've done here with this Chatter integration inside of any platform. It sounds like it's not just Adobe. What's the name of the Adobe product?
It was Adobe Experience.
Adobe Experience, or it's not limited to SharePoint or Office 365. So it should work in those just fine. It's really just the security that will change from client to client.
That's right. Yeah, and any client can, use the out-of-the-box experience. The only reason they would want customization is to prevent users, from having to log in.
Okay.
With the out-of-the-box experience, the user has to click a login button and actually authenticate themselves to Chatter.
Great. Thanks everybody for taking the time to listen. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.